everybody, this is your favorite realtor Norm, and I'm coming to you today with a powerful presentation from my good friend Sam Richardson over at It's All Good. Sam, thank you for joining me.
Oh, thanks for having me today. Appreciate it, man. You are my favorite realtor.
Excellent, excellent. Well, I've learned so much from working with you and being part of your business. I would imagine you meet all types of clients, whether it's an executor, attorney, or just someone downsizing, maybe trying to help a parent or a friend get ready for a move. When those folks give you a call, I would imagine they're asking you about pricing. How do you calculate pricing?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And honestly, one of the things that we like to help people understand is their options, because we are what's called a full service junk removal estate cleanout service, right? Meaning we come in and we can handle all of the loading, all of the processing, sorting things from donations to junk. We take care of all of that ourselves. You don't have to get a dumpster and all these things. That is usually the option for people who are overwhelmed. And like, say, a lot of the situations we have with them, and you're also familiar with, is, hey, I'm only in town for 2 days, right? I flew in from California. Mom's passed away. This is her house. I'm only here for 2 days to kind of figure out what the heck is going on, and then I gotta get back to my family and my job.
Yes.
So in those situations, full service is probably always going to be the go-to, because I don't have a month to sit here and load this dumpster slowly. But we do often find people who maybe are looking for options, right? So you have the dumpster option, which is like they can load it themselves, and we don't do dumpsters, but they can load it themselves. It's going to be a lower cost for sure. Then you have the full service option like us, who is going to come in there and help, while you're processing and looking through things. We take the stuff out of the house. And then you've got the options that are more like the like liquidators, right? These are people who come in and say, hey, we want to buy the whole house. So they're basically looking at a high resale amount. This, as you know, requires the house to have some significantly valued items. So you have to have some stuff in there that's pretty good. And then once that's the case, they'll come in there and essentially clean the house out with the idea that they're going to sell everything. Occasionally that works. Most of the time it doesn't, but we're kind of the mid-range, always going to be a great option. That being said, we charge based off of how much space we fill up in this truck. So if we fill up, it's prorated. If we fill up 2.5 trucks, you'll pay for 2 full trucks and maybe a half of the other. On a general consensus, this is for Northern Virginia anyways, that's people can expect, for trucks like this, they range anywhere from about $700-800 depending on their size. Some of the trucks are about half as big as ours, up to about $1,200 to fill one up entirely. And that's just good to know in case somebody's ever prospecting, looking around, like how much is it going to fill. There's a lot of variables that can play into it. If it's a high amount of donations, and there's not going to be disposal fees versus maybe even also if it's got like a walk. We've done some states where everyone has to come out of the basement and it's up a muddy hill, and those things can play into it. But for the most part, it's one flat rate based off of how much space you're going to fill up in the truck, and you want to make sure you find somebody who's credible coming in there and not just looking to that it's pretty. People come in for different reasons. Some people are junk removal companies that come in just because they want to take all the valuables, and so you want to make sure you're working with someone who, when they do uncover maybe say the lot that's in the basement that was buried under everything, they're not just going to stick that in the truck and say, ooh, can't wait to see what's in there later. It's a really big deal.
I bet. So I would imagine you provide a written estimate before work begins, and people know, and you carry all the right insurances, things like that.
Exactly.
Beautiful.
So now I will throw one cautionary statement in there. Junk removal is a very low barrier to entry. And I say this obviously for Northern Virginia where we are here, but also across the country. There's really no, aside from just, paying your taxes and having a business license for your county, there's really not a lot that you have to do. So I say that because doing due diligence is incredibly important when working with an estate, for a company to help you with an estate, because it is such a big task and it's so easy for somebody to come in and maybe throw out a high number and really have no idea what they're doing. So doing due diligence and making sure that you see some stuff on their website, maybe some reviews where people have worked with them in the estate capacity, to really make sure that you have somebody who can handle what you're going to be throwing out.
I love it. So the due diligence, you sound like a good first call to make for all the clients out there, because you're going to give them the correct information right off the bat and give them some direction that they can use. So I really appreciate that upfrontness.
Yeah, of course. Like Norm, I think we're in the business of making sure, even if it's not us, right, making sure they find the best option to help them for their situations.
That's exactly right. That's one of the things I love working with you, Sam, is you have that great bedside manner. You're an excellent listener. You can hear what the client's trying to accomplish, achieve, and then tailor something to them. You know, I do the same thing. And then if it's not the right fit, well, we can give them direction to somewhere that would be the right fit and maximize their experience.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think one of the other benefits of working with somebody like you and like us is that we are usually tied to relationships, right? So if you're working with somebody like me who does know you, of course, I'm always going to do what's best for the client's interest, but there's a safety net there. I'm also going to do what's best by you as well and your clients. So always keeping our relationships in mind really means that I have a lot of accountability in the marketplace, and I can't just go out there and recklessly run things, you know? So we're always operating under a very high amount of accountability as well.
You are. I mean, that's the great thing that, we provide to the public. Let me ask you this. Can you maybe share some other ideas around best practices? Or you shared a story earlier, you found the money in the vase. Any takeaways like that help, can describe what you do, help describe to clients in a real world example?
Yeah, so actually that was a really helpful situation, I think. So this is where we're still working hand in hand with like a beneficiary or a survivor, right? So this was a husband, his wife had actually turned their home into a very large collection home. I mean, she had so many collectibles, a lot of clothing. She was buying a lot of vases, and there was a lot of candles. And I mean, just think about anything that you could find: candles, clothing items, tchotchkes, we call them tchotchkes. I think everybody kind of knows what tchotchkes are, yeah. And this house was packed full of them. Well, his wife got sick and she ended up passing away in very short notice. And this gentleman was left, and he's in his 70s, left with this entire house. It was about a 2,800 square foot home. And we had estimated somewhere around 13 to 15 of these trucks to come out of there. Now, it was going to be an exhausting task for him to do this on his own. And he really was. I mean, so much so that whenever we would come to do the work, it was so emotionally charged for him that he usually had to excuse himself, and he would go off and go get lunch, or he would try to not be there. But during that process, the fact that we went through a very thorough vetting process with us to make sure we were a good fit. But we did. We had to sit there and start, we set aside piles, and when he would get back, he would spend an hour and a half sitting there just going through all the unique and interesting things that we found. And we developed a very big trust process. But he could only do, about a 2-hour, 3-hour stint at a time before he would kind of say, all right, guys, I've really had a lot. I think it's, we'll call it a day. And so it took us almost a month to go through his project, because that was the pace that he wanted to go through. And what that looked like with our team on site, kind of like you're saying, a direct project, is that we were physically sitting there while he was usually in the kitchen, or like I said, he would excuse himself and come back. And we will have had sorted multiple piles, usually donation, personal family items, and then dispose. And he did want to look at the disposed items before we throw them in the truck. And then he would have the chance to sit there and make those decisions. And then after about 2.5 hours or so, then we would take off. So it's a very common process, either working directly side by side or while they're, away. Yeah. And then at the end of the project, we were selling the house, and there was some tears shed. Everybody was very emotional watching that big project come to a completion.
I bet. What I hear you saying is you can tailor make your solutions, your service to the client's needs within reason, and how good that felt to really bring that project home for someone who needed to take their time, and over a month. I mean, as a business owner, that's tricky, but you were able to accommodate that. So I love that. Thank you for sharing. Well, as we wrap up here, Sam, I would love for you to be able to share to the public, how can people get a hold of you? What's the best way to follow you? Social media for those folks too that are curious what these places look like.
Yeah, thanks, Norm. So I think first one, Instagram's fun for us because we get a chance to showcase projects there. So I would say Instagram, it's at itsallgood.com. So website, www.itsallgood.com. All of our social media, we're on Facebook, Instagram. We do have a YouTube channel as well. And all of those are just at itsallgood.
I love it, man. I enjoy watching your Instagram photos and seeing these properties as well. Everybody, Sam does a great job. I can definitely recommend him. Regarding real estate, remember, questions, concerns, hallucinations, call Norm.